Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Philadelphia City Council's Committee on Streets and Services. I note that the hour has come. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Ahmad? Yes. Councilmember Bass? Councilmember Brooks? Councilmember Harity?
No.
Vice Chair Squilla?
Present.
Chair Young?
Present. Thank you, Mr. Pullen. I note that a quorum of the committee is present for this hearing to be called to order. I also note for the record the presence of Councilmember Jamie Gautier. This is a public hearing of the Committee on Streets and Services considering testimony on bills number 240872, 250575, 250576, 250606, 250649, 250652, 250653, 250710, 250711, 250712, 250713, 250714, 250715, 250716, 250718, 250723, 250724, 250725, 250770, 250771, and 250772. I would like to also note that bills numbers 250606 and 250649 are being held at the request of the sponsor. Before we begin, do any of my colleagues have any opening remarks? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, please read the title of the first bill.
Bill number 250713, titled Establish a Parking Regulation on South 62nd Street between Chestnut Street and Walnut Street, Kingston Avenue between South 52nd Street and South 53rd Street, Sampson Street between South 62nd Street and South 63rd Street, Powelton Avenue between North 42nd Street and North 43rd Street, Powelton Avenue between 43rd Street and Holden Street, and also bill number 250714, titled Establish a Parking Regulation on Fountain Street between Ridge Avenue and Hazelwood Lane, Lauriston Street between Roxborough Avenue and Monastery Avenue, Overlook Road between Matthias Street and Shalcup Street, Gorgas Lane between Ridge Avenue and Lawton Street, Martin Street between Ridge Avenue and Mitchell Street, Levering Street between Crescent Street and Silverwood Street, Lamonte Street between Petchin Street and Ridge Avenue, DuPont Street between Fleming Street and Boone Street to Dead End, Monastery Avenue between Mitchell Street and Ridge Avenue, Palisades Drive between Capitol View Drive and Heritage Drive and Merrick Road, and also bill number 250715, titled Establishing a Parking Regulation on Hobart Street between Thompson Street and Master Street, Lancaster Avenue between Jefferson Street and North 54th Street, North 59th Street between Malvern Avenue and Woodcrest Avenue, Bainbridge Street between Willard Street and Allegheny Avenue.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the witness to testify on these bills? And for the record, this is testimony for bill number 250713, 250714, and 250715.
The first witness to testify is Lester Emerson, Deputy Parking Manager for the Philadelphia Parking Authority.
Morning, Council.
Good morning. Please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
My name is Lester Emerson, Deputy Manager for the Philadelphia Parking Authority. Thank you for allowing me to testify before Council regarding ordinances 250713, 250714, and 250715, establishing parking regulations. Philadelphia Parking Authority has no objection to the ordinances previously read before Council and recommends favorable consideration. Thank you again for your time, and I'll be happy to respond to any questions at this time.
Thank you so much, Mr. Emerson. Are there any questions of this witness on these bills? Seeing none, thank you so much, Mr. Emerson. Is there anyone else present wishing to testify on bills number 250713, 250714, or 250715? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Pullen.
Bill number All right, Bill number 250710, titled Amending Section 3 of an Ordinance. Bill number 230033, approved April 12th, 2023, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing the Vacating of Sloan Street from Ogden Street to its terminus northwardly therefrom, and the reserving and plotting upon City Plan number 106 of a right-of-way for sewer and drainage purposes and public utility purposes within the lines of said Sloan Street being vacated, and authorizing acceptance of the grant to the city of the said right-of-way under certain terms and conditions by extending the period for compliance with the terms and conditions stated therein.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the witnesses to testify on this bill?
The first witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Please proceed. I apologize for that. Please proceed your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 250710, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by Michael Mattioni, Esquire of Mattioni LTD, representing 879 North 440 LLC. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to amend a previous ordinance, Bill number 230033, approved April 12, 2023, which authorized the vacating of Sloan Street from Ogden Street to its terminus northwesterly therefrom, and the reserving and plotting upon the city plan of a right-of-way for sewer and drainage purposes and public utility purposes within the lines of Sloan Street being vacated, and the acceptance of the grant to the city of the said right-of-way. The portion of Sloan Street proposed to be vacated is not in use by public traffic and is not maintained by the Department of Streets, the Streets Department as a city street. The proposed amendment will extend the operable period for compliance with the terms and conditions of the authorizing ordinance for an additional 2 years. The purposes of this action is to allow the bed of Sloan Street to revert to private property so that the area can be better maintained. The Department of Streets has no objection to this proposed ordinance and recommends it to the committee for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to testify before you today. Be pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairmember Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 250710, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier on September 11th, 2025. This bill will extend the time for compliance with the original bill, number 230033, which was approved to authorize vacating the legally open portion of Sloan Street from Ogden Avenue to its northern terminus. This portion of Sloan Street is not improved as a public street, nor it is open to the public traffic. The adjacent property owner has requested this action in order to remove its legal encumbrance on the underlying property and clarifying the ownership of the affected area. The City Planning Commission, at its meeting on September 18th, 2025, recommended Bill number 250710 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Chu. Are there any questions on Bill number 250710 by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you. We're going to go a little bit out of order. Thank you. We're going to go a little bit out of order today. And so, Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill to be heard?
Bill number 250712, titled Authorizing the Streets Department to Establish Parking and Stopping Regulations on Both Sides of 47th Street between Chestnut Street and King Sessing Street under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the first witnesses to testify on this bill? I apologize for that. Before we call the witnesses, I would like to recognize the sponsor of this legislation, Council Member Jamie Gauthier. You want to speak?
Two?
Yes.
Sorry. Thank you so much, Chairman Young, Vice Chair Squilla, and members of the committee. I wanted to speak on this bill because there has been a lot of misinformation around this bill and this project, and I appreciate the opportunity to remind everyone why we are doing this work in the first place. More than 2 years ago, neighborhood residents approached my office about redesigning two arterial roads, 47th Street and 48th Street, which have been plagued with traffic violence. 47th Street is actually on the city's high injury network, and a series of crashes, such as a truck slamming into Lee's Deli and a pedestrian succumbing to her injuries after being struck by a car at 47th and Chester, prove how necessary this work is, and these are just a couple of examples. I directed my team to go above and beyond in engaging the community. Alongside Otis, we co-hosted more than a dozen meetings in various formats, gathered feedback, and made ourselves available for individual conversations. We met with RCO executive boards, we organized block-specific focus groups, we held open houses, and offered smaller tailored meetings for any block or any entity that felt that their voice was not being heard. After nearly 2 years of extensive outreach, the conclusion is clear. Despite a few pockets of very vocal opposition, most neighbors strongly support our safety measures on 47th and 48th Streets. In total, we incorporated over 50 specific revisions from neighbors. This bill enables some of those revisions that were requested by neighbors. Neighbors asked for loading zones to help them unload groceries, pick up and drop off young people and seniors, and have items delivered. Bill 250712 gives streets the permission to implement the loading zones and parking changes that neighbors specifically asked for. I want to thank everyone who is here to testify on the bill today. Whether you're for or against, I do think government works best when neighbors make their voices heard. And as with any major infrastructure project, there will inevitably be growing pains, no matter how hard we try to avoid it. And for this reason, I think it is very appropriate to give streets the authority they need to make the tweaks that they see as necessary as this project moves forward. But traffic violence is real violence, and it is no accident that our working class Black and brown communities experience a disproportionate share of this violence. For too long, our city has seen our communities and our bodies as expendable. And so this is about safety. It isn't about politics. It isn't about anybody running for office. It's about safety for our kids, our elders, and everyone in between. And that's why, as both a trained urban planner and a council member, I will never waver in my #1 obligation to make West and Southwest Philadelphia a safe place to live. I urge the members of the committee to send Bill 250712 to the council floor with a favorable recommendation, and I thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today.
Thank you so much, Councilmember Gautier. The chair recognizes Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the name of the witnesses to testify?
Yes, the next witness to testify to come up alongside Mr. Montanez is Chris Gale, Executive Director at the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia.
Mr. Montanez, please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Richard Montanez, and I am the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on Bill number 250712, introduced by Councilmember Gautier. This bill authorizes the Streets Department to promulgate regulations to prohibit or restrict the stopping of vehicles and to establish and revise time-limited loading zones on both sides of 47th Street between Chestnut Street and King Sessing Street, consistent with the protection of the public safety and appropriate use of the right-of-way. These regulations are part of the street direction change and the traffic safety improvements made to 47th Street that were implemented this summer. These changes include the addition of loading zones and daylighting at intersections, Daylighting increases visibility for drivers and pedestrians at intersections and crosswalks, thus improving safety. Parking and stopping regulations were developed in partnership with Councilmember Gautier's office and the result of stakeholder engagement conducted between 2023 and 2025. The Department of Streets supports this legislation. This concludes my testimony. I am pleased to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gale, please proceed your testimony.
Hi, my name is Chris Gale. I'm the Executive Director of the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Thank you, Councilmember Young, members of Streets and Services, for this time. We do support this legislation as it will enable the safety of all road users by prohibiting parking in the new separated bike lane and one-way southbound lane configuration on 47th Street. The southbound lane on 47th will serve as the street pair for the northbound lane on 48th Street. 47th Street is on the Philadelphia High Injury Network, with 80% of all crashes involving a death or serious injury occurring on just 12% of city streets. This is a safety issue. The Bicycle Coalition supports Bill number 250712 and asks that the members of this committee vote in favor to introduce this to the floor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I do have a question. You cited the statistics on the high injury network that this block is on, but this block is on the high injury network. Do you know the percentage of those accidents that happen on this particular block?
I do not know the specifics of this block for the crashes.
Okay. Does the administration department, would you have those statistics, or will it be Otis may have those statistics?
I do not know it off the top of my head, Council Member, but sorry. I'm sorry, Council. I do not know it off the top of my head, but we can provide you those numbers after this meeting.
Thank you. I mean, because it's good to note that, we have 80% of injuries occurring on only 12%, but within that 12%, we want to make sure that those streets are also, the right policies are tailored to the amount of injuries that are caused on those particular streets too, right? So every policy isn't a one-size-fits-all for every street. So we just want to make sure that it's specifically tailored to that community, and that because communities all want to be safer, but we got to make sure that it works for that area. Mr. Montanez, just a question on these types of matters. I just note that, just for my own intellectual curiosity, I guess, that some matters are Streets Department and others are Otis. I'm like, is there a difference in why Otis will handle something versus the Streets Department in some particular matters?
The Streets Department and Otis work together hand in hand for the safety of all users of the public right-of-way. Otis usually works on the planning side, and Streets Department works on the implementation side.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions of these witnesses by members of the committee? Nope, seeing none. Thank you both for your testimony. And we do, just to note that there are some folks who have listed they want to testify on this bill. We will have that testimony during the public comment section to allow the public to testify on these bills and others that are going to come up as well. I just want to let you all know early on. Mr. Pullen, please read the title of the next bill to be heard.
Bill number 250716, titled Amending Section 2 of an Ordinance, Bill number 230438, approved July 5th, 2023, entitled An Ordinance Authorizing the Revision of Lines and Grades on a portion of City Plan numbers 230 and 289 by placing on the City Plan two irregularly shaped areas, one located along the northeasterly side of Ridge Avenue and extending from a point northwest of the Wissahickon Creek to a point approximately 424 feet further northwestwardly therefrom, and the other located along the southwesterly side of Ridge Avenue extending from a point northwest of the Wissahickon Creek northwestwardly to the southwesterly side of Main Street, thereby widening said Ridge Avenue and authorizing the opening of the portions of the said widened Ridge Avenue extending through property owned by the city under certain terms and conditions, including the dedication to the city of the additions to the beds of Ridge Avenue and Main Street being placed on the city plan by extending the period for compliance with the terms and conditions stated therein.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the first witnesses to testify on this bill?
The first witnesses to testify are Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you. Good afternoon again. Please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on Bill Number 250716, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by William Knuckle, Senior Program Manager at SEPTA. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to amend a previous ordinance, Bill Number 230438, approved January 5th, 2023, which authorized the widening of Ridge Avenue between the Wissahickon Creek and Main Street. The bill will extend the applicable period for compliance with the terms and conditions of the authorizing ordinance for an additional 2 years. SEPTA is redeveloping and expanding the Wissahickon Transportation Center on Ridge Avenue. This action will relocate the right-of-way lines and widen the roadway to facilitate bus movement and safe boarding and deboarding. Department of Streets has no objections to this proposed ordinance and recommends it to the committee for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Ms. Chu, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairmember Young and members on the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 250716, introduced by Councilmember Jones on September 11, 2025. This bill will extend the timeline for compliance with the original Bill 230438, which was approved to authorize the widening of Ridge Avenue to build and dedicate to the city bus-only lane and widening the sidewalks in front of the expanded Wissahickon Transportation Center. The city plan change action is consistent with the Wissahickon Gateway Plan and its recommendations about widening Ridge Avenue as a part of the expansion of the Wissahickon Transportation Center. The City Planning Commission at its meeting on September 18, 2025, recommended Bill Number 250716 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Just a quick question. Is there anyone from SEPTA here to testify on this bill? No? Okay. Are there any questions on Bill Number 250716 of these witnesses by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, please read the title of the next bill to be heard.
Bill number 250724, titled Authorizing Various Encroachments in the Vicinity of 1000 to 52 Frankfurt Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19125, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, please call the witnesses to testify.
The witnesses to testify are Noelle Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you. Ms. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250724, introduced by Councilmember Squilla. This bill authorizes Core Equity to LP, the owner, to install, own, and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe and fence at Mama Juana Cafe, located at 1000-52 Frankfurt Avenue. Total of 4 tables and 16 seats for a sidewalk cafe and a proposed fence will be located along the west sidewalk of Frankfurt Avenue and the north sidewalk of Laurel Street along the property line of 1000-52 Frankfurt Avenue. 1 table and 4 seats will be located adjacent to the building of 1000-52 Frankfurt Avenue, leaving 7 feet 11 inches of clear unobstructed footway. 3 tables and 12 seats will be located adjacent to the building of 1000-52 Frankfurt Avenue, leaving 11 feet 1 inch of clear unobstructed footway. 1 proposed fence will be located adjacent to the building of 1000-52 Frankfurt Avenue, leaving 7 feet 11 inches of clear unobstructed footway. The proposed fence will be 4 feet in height. The Department of Streets is not opposed to these proposed encroachments, as the minimum unobstructed footway will be maintained. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. The chair recognizes the presence of Councilmember Cindy Baz, member of this committee, is present. And Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairmember Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 250724, introduced by Councilmember Squilla on September 11, 2025. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 1000-52 Frankfurt Avenue, a minimum of 7 feet 11 inches of clear sidewalk space is to remain after the installation. This meets Complete Streets policy. The Planning Commission, at its meeting on September 18, 2025, recommended Bill number 250724 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions of these witnesses on this bill? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill to be heard?
Bill number 240872, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 6618 Castor Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19149, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please call the witnesses to testify on this bill.
The first witness testifier, Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you so much. Ms. Marconi, please proceed your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 240872, introduced by Councilmember Phillips. This bill authorizes 6618 Castor Associates, LLC, the owner, to install, own, and maintain an encroachment in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Tito Pepe, located at 6618 Castor Avenue. A total of 11 tables and 22 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located along the south sidewalk of Fanshawe Street and the west sidewalk of Castor Avenue along the property line of 6618 Castor Avenue. 5 tables and 10 seats will be located adjacent to the building of 6618 Castor Avenue, leaving 6 feet of clear unobstructed footway. 6 tables and 12 seats will be located adjacent to the building of 6618 Castor Avenue, leaving 10 feet of clear and unobstructed footway. Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as the minimum unobstructed footway will be maintained. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chair Member Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 240872, introduced by Councilmember Phillips on October 10, 2024. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 6516 Castor Avenue. A minimum of 10 feet of clear space is to remain after the installation on Castor Avenue, and a minimum of 6 feet of clear sidewalk space is to remain after the installation on Fanshawe Street. This meets the minimum required dimensions of the Complete Streets policy of the Philadelphia Code. The City Planning Commission, at its meeting on November 21st, 2024, recommended Bill number 240872 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chu. Are there any questions on this bill by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 250576, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 426 through 28 West Girard Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19123, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please call the witnesses for this bill.
Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Ms. Marconi, please proceed. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 250576, introduced by Chairperson Young. This bill authorizes Fimsey's 426 Girard LLC, the owner, to install, own, and maintain an encroachment in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at La Casillas, located at 426-28 Girard Avenue. A total of 10 tables and 25 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located along the curb line and property line of the south sidewalk of West Girard Avenue and the east sidewalk of North Lawrence Street along the property line of 426-28 West Girard Avenue. 3 tables and 9 seats will be located adjacent to the curb line of 426-28 West Girard Avenue, leaving 8 feet of clear unobstructed footway. 4 tables and 8 seats will be located adjacent to the building of 426-28 West Girard Avenue, leaving 8 feet of clear and unobstructed footway. And another 3 tables and 8 seats will be located adjacent to the building of 426-28 West Girard Avenue, leaving 5 feet of clear and unobstructed footway. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as the minimum unobstructed footway will be maintained. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Ms. Chu, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chair Member Young and members on the Committee of Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 250576, introduced by Councilmember Young on May 29, 2025. Bill Number 250576 will permit a sidewalk cafe at 426-28 West Girard Avenue. A minimum of 5 feet of clear sidewalk space is to remain after installation on Lawrence Street, and 8 feet of clear sidewalk space is to remain after installation on Girard Avenue. This meets the complete street policy. The Planning Commission at its meeting on June 5th, 2025 recommended a Bill Number 250576 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony on this. Are there any questions by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the titles of the next bill to be heard?
Bill number 250725, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the Vicinity of 1313 through 17 South 3rd Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19147, under certain terms and conditions.
It's a lot of sidewalk cafes. I can't wait to eat here. Thank you. Mr. Pullen, please call the witnesses to testify.
First witness to testify, Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250725, introduced by Councilmember Squilla. This bill authorizes 3rd Street Real Estate, the owner, to install, own, and maintain an encroachment in the nature of a sidewalk cafe at Herman's Coffee, located at 1313-17 South 3rd Street. Total of 8 tables and 30 seats for a sidewalk cafe will be located along the east sidewalk of South 3rd Street, along the property line of 1313-17 South 3rd Street, and along the west sidewalk of East Moyamensing Avenue, along the property line of 1313-17 South 3rd Street. Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed sidewalk cafe, as it will maintain 6 feet of clear and unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony. I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairmember Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill Number 250725, introduced by Councilmember Squilla on September 11th, 2025. This bill will allow a sidewalk cafe at 1313-17 South 3rd Street. A minimum of 6 feet of clear sidewalk space is to remain after installation. This meets complete streets policy. The Planning Commission at its meeting on September 18, 2025, recommended a Bill Number 250725 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for your testimony. Are there any questions of these witnesses on this bill? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please read the title of the next bill to be heard by the committee?
Bill number 250652, titled Authorizing a Dumpster Enclosure Encroachment at 782 through 84 South 3rd Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19147, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please recall the witnesses.
The first witness to testify, Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets, and Sarah Chu, Development Director for the City Planning Commission.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please state your name for the record. Proceed to testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noelle Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250652, introduced by Councilmember Squilla. This bill authorizes Nathan Ross and Samuel Ligon, the owners, to install, own, and maintain an encroachment in the nature of a dumpster enclosure located at 782-84 South 3rd Street. A dumpster enclosure will be located along the north sidewalk of Catherine Street, along the property line of 782-84 South 3rd Street. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed encroachment, as it will maintain 6 feet of clear unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Sorry about that delay. Are there, sorry, Ms. Chu, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairmember Young and members of the Committee on Streets and Services. I'm Sarah Chu, City Planner Manager with the Philadelphia City Planning Commission. I'm here to testify on Bill number 250652, introduced by Councilmember Squilla on June 12, 2025. This bill will allow a dumpster enclosure at 782-84 South 3rd Street. This will reduce the existing dumpster enclosure to maintain a minimum of 6 feet of clear sidewalk space, which will meet the Complete Streets policy. The Planning Commission, at its meeting of July 17, 2025, recommended Bill number 250652 for approval. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time.
Thank you so much for your testimony, Ms. Chu. Are there any questions of these witnesses by members of the committee on this bill? Seeing none, Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 250723, titled Authorizing the Revision of Lines and Grades on a Portion of City Plan number 370 by striking from the city plan Southampton Road from Bustleton Avenue to its terminus southeastwardly therefrom under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Would you please call the witnesses?
The first witness to testify is Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please begin with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi, and I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 250723, introduced by Councilmember O'Neill. This is not an administration ordinance, but an ordinance requested by John and Robin and Kat Gneas of 15001 Bustleton, LLC. The purpose of this proposed ordinance is to authorizing the striking from the city plan of a Southampton Road from Bustleton Avenue to a dead end approximately 209 feet southwesterly therefrom. The portion of Southampton Road proposed to be stricken is only partially paved and is not listed as legally open on the Streets Department records, and the department is not desirous of maintaining a street at this location. This action has been requested by the abutting property owners who wish to better secure their property and prevent unauthorized parking and other incursions. The Department of Streets has no objections to this proposed ordinance and recommends it to the committee for favorable action. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions on this bill by this witness? Seeing none. Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill to be heard?
Bill number 250653, titled Authorizing a Streetery in the Right-of-Way Adjacent to 782 through 84 South 3rd Street, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19147, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, please call the witnesses for this bill.
Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets.
Thank you. Ms. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young, members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 250653, introduced by Councilmember Squilla. This bill authorizes Nathan Ross and Salmon Lagan, LLC, the owners, to install and maintain a streetery in the right-of-way adjacent to 782-84 South 3rd Street. A total of 11 tables and 22 seats will be located adjacent to the north curb line of 782-84 South 3rd Street in the parking lane and will encroach a distance of approximately 7 feet towards the south along the north cartway of Catherine Street. The Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed streetery, so as long as it complies with the laws, rules, and regulations of the city, and specifically those of the Department of License and Inspection, Department of Streets, and the Art Commission. This ordinance authorizes the location of streetery subject to those rules. This concludes my testimony. Please answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi, for your testimony. Is there anyone else to testify? Thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the title of the next bill?
Bill number 250772, titled Authorizing Encroachments in the Nature of a Sidewalk Cafe in the vicinity of 3423 Kensington Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19134, under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please call the witnesses.
Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets.
Ms. Marconi, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250772, introduced by Councilmember Driscoll. This bill authorizes 3419 Kensington Partners, the owner, to install and maintain encroachments in the nature of a sidewalk cafe, trash receptacles, and planters located at 3423 Kensington Avenue. Total of 5 tables and 10 seats, 1 trash receptacle, and 7 planters for a sidewalk cafe will be located adjacent to the building line of 3423 Kensington Avenue. Department of Streets is not opposed to this proposed encroachment as it will maintain 5 feet of clear and unobstructed footway. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Are there any questions of this witness on this bill? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please read the title of the next bill?
Bill number 250771, titled authorizing 3419 Kensington Partners or a subsequent owner to install, own, and maintain an encroachment at 3423 Kensington Avenue, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania 19134 under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please call the witness for this bill.
Noel Marconi, Department of Streets.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250771, introduced by Councilmember Driscoll. This bill authorizes 3419 Kensington Partners, the owner, to install, own, and maintain an encroachment in the nature of 2 building access ramps located at 3423 Kensington Avenue. 2 proposed building ramps will be adjacent to the building line of 3423 Kensington Avenue. 1 building ramp will encroach towards the south along the north footway of East Russell Street, leaving a minimum of 4 feet 8 inches of clear unobstructed footway. A second building access ramp will encroach towards the west along the east footway of Kensington Avenue, leaving a minimum of 5 feet of clear unobstructed footway. Department of Streets is not opposed to these encroachments as the minimum of an unobstructed footway will be maintained. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Ms. Marconi. Just for the record, I want to note that there is an amendment to Bill Number 250771. Is that correct, Mr. Pullen? Thank you. Looks like the amendment is just a technical amendment. Thank you. Are there any questions of members of this committee on this bill? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, please read the title of the next bill.
Bill number 250575, titled regulating the direction of movement of traffic on Gorgeous Lane between Ridge Avenue and Lawton Street under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please call the witnesses.
Noel Marconi, Department of Streets.
Ms. Marconi, please proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250575, introduced by Councilmember Jones. This bill establishes a 2-way regulation on Gorgeous Lane between Ridge Avenue and Lawton Street eastbound. Department of Streets is not opposed to this 2-way regulation. Signage can be posted within 60 days. This concludes my testimony. I'm pleased to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Are there any questions of this witness on this bill? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, please read the title of the next bill to be heard by this committee.
Bill number 250711, titled regulating the direction of movement of traffic on Preston Street between Spring Garden and Haverford, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you. Mr. Pullen, please call the witness.
Noel Marconi, Legislative Affairs Director for the Department of Streets.
Ms. Marconi, please proceed.
Good afternoon, Chairperson Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Noel Marconi. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Department of Streets. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill Number 250711, introduced by Councilmember Gauthier. This bill establishes a 1-way regulation on Preston Street between Spring Garden and Haverford, southbound. Department of Streets is not opposed to this 1-way regulation. Signage can be posted within 60 days. This concludes my testimony, and please answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Marconi. Are there any questions of this witness on this bill? Seeing none, thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please read the title of the next bill to be heard by the committee?
Bill number 250770, titled amending Chapter 12-3400 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Use of an Automated Speed Enforcement System to Improve Safety by providing for the use, administration, and enforcement of automated speed cameras on designated state routes under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Please call the witnesses.
The first witness to testify is Nicholas Cole Appleman, Transportation Policy Analyst at the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon. Please state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Sure. Cole Appleman, Transportation Policy Analyst from the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems.
Thank you. Please proceed.
Absolutely. All right, well, good afternoon, everybody. Chairperson Young, members of the Streets and Services Committee, thank you for the opportunity to appear here before you today. As I just mentioned, my name is Cole Appleman, and I am a policy analyst with the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure Systems. You probably know us better as Otis. I'm here today to offer testimony on Bill number 250770, sponsored by Councilmember Driscoll on behalf of Council President Johnson. This bill number 250770 is titled The Use of Automated Speed Enforcement. It adds ACE, Automated Speed Enforcement, cameras along state routes 1004, much better known as Erie and Torresdale Avenue, Route 2016, better known as Allegheny Ave, and Route 2001, which is Columbus and Delaware Avenue, Oregon Ave, east of Broad, and Richmond Street. This bill would establish speed enforcement cameras along these 3 additional corridors to reduce speeding, therefore reducing deaths and serious injuries along these major corridors. As we've said many times before, slowing down saves lives. Speed is the top deciding factor in both whether a crash is going to happen at all, as well as how severe the crash may be, leading to a serious injury or fatality. ACE has proven to be highly effective in Philadelphia at slowing drivers down. In the years since ACE was installed on Roosevelt Boulevard, we've seen a 95% reduction in speeding violations on the boulevard. We've also seen pedestrian-involved crashes cut in half, so a reduction of 50%, as well as a 21% reduction in fatal and serious injury crashes overall. Council did vote to expand this life-saving technology to 2 other corridors in 2024, including Broad Street and Route 13. As well as earlier this year passing legislation to put this technology in 7 school zones. The 3 corridors under consideration were carefully selected for expansion after extensive study and speed-related crashes throughout the city. In preparation for this legislation, we've consulted with every impacted district council member and have conducted extensive research, extensive outreach, there we go, with the registered community organizations regarding this expansion. In addition to council and community outreach, the activation of these cameras, of course, will be followed by a 60-day warning period, ensuring a transparent rollout of the program. We look forward to continuing our work with the Philadelphia Parking Authority as program administrators, and of course, the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation on effective program communication, sharing the message that this pilot is not about issuing tickets, but it's about changing behavior to preserve human life. Thank you very much for the opportunity to appear before you today. This legislation is proven effective, and once again, thank you for taking part in helping manage speeds to keep people safer in this city. I'll take any questions now.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Can you tell us what the miles per hour would be along this corridor?
Which one?
All of them, essentially.
Okay. Yes, I would like to verify. So Allegheny Ave is 25 miles an hour. The speed limit is variable along Route 2001, which is Columbus and Delaware. It goes between 25 and 30 miles an hour. And then I would have to verify Route 1004, but I believe that's between 25 and 30 miles an hour, depending on exactly where you are on that route.
And so what determines that, the variable? I mean, I'm just thinking if that's Columbus and Delaware, I'm just trying to compare it to Broad Street, for example, right?
Sure.
So Broad Street's our main street in our city. So what's the variables that are determine what speed should be the max speed for this camera system?
Sure. So the speed limits are already determined on that road, and that's actually something that PennDOT determines. When we did lower the speed limit on the north section of Broad Street, when this was passed with 611, that was actually done after a speed study was finished, and it came recommended that we do so. That was not something that we decided as the city. That all has to go through PennDOT determining the speed limit.
What are the variables that determine that? Is the question,
That would be That would be a good question for somebody who's more of a traffic engineer. I'm more of the, legislative kind of gentleman. Hang on one second.
Well, that'll be helpful
Yes.
if the
Yes,
if the
please, let's-
administration-
yeah.
It'd be helpful if the administration could give us some of the variables that are determining, some of the things that we are legislating, right?
Do I need to,
Yes, please state your name for the record, and, please.
Is it working?
Marco Guarini, Vision Zero Program Manager with the Office of Transportation and Infrastructure System. Just to follow up on what Cole was saying, it is part of the state legislation that we have to do a traffic and engineering study on every corridor that is selected between the city and PennDOT to install automated speed enforcement. So the traffic engineers do a speed study, they collect speed data, they evaluate that. There are, rules that sort of define that traffic engineers have to follow. 85th percentile is one of them. That process is not complete for those corridors. So they're currently collecting the speed data that will go into determining what the appropriate speed limit should be for the 3 corridors.
So that process isn't complete yet, but we're passing the legislation that would, so who would regulate that? So once we pass this legislation, who would then say, all right, the speed on this street is X and that street is Y? Like, who determines that once this is passed?
So that's done by the chief traffic engineer. So the city of Philadelphia works with PennDOT within the rules that are defined by the state for what the appropriate speed limit should be. So again, it's based on what the prevailing speed is that people are going at, but there are some additional considerations that they can take into account to make sure that it's the safest, most appropriate speed for that type of corridor.
And for these corridors here, do we have information on what those prevailing speeds are to give to the public who will be affected by this?
So we've taken some initial speed on Erie and Torresdale, as well as we have some recent studies on Delaware Ave, Columbus Boulevard. But again, they are doing sort of like the official speed study now, where they'll take the most recent speed data, make sure that we're using the most up to date to determine what the correct speed limit is, and also to justify the locations of the speed cameras.
So how can the public, again, get access to that information to ensure that the miles per hour that the city comes up with or the traffic engineer decides is based on real information that they've collected? How can there be third-party validators, essentially, for some of this information that is being collected?
So the speed data that is collected that's part of the traffic and engineering study is privileged. It's not something that can be made public because the speed studies are a document that's not discoverable, not sort of shareable. But there are other sources of data. For instance, DVRPC hosts their sort of traffic count website that has a lot of available speed studies. There are other sort of companies that put out speed data, and we kind of look at all of these different ones. We have to use a very specific sort of standard for the speed studies themselves that go towards the speed limit. But it will be very much in line with all of the kind of available data out there about the prevailing speeds on those corridors.
So what you're saying is that the members of this committee we've been asked to pass legislation regarding automated speed enforcement, but we can't have access to the data that determine what the automated speed enforcement should be.
We can share with members of the committee the speed, sort of that raw speed studies. If that's something that folks would like to see, we absolutely can share that.
I mean, I think we would like to see the information that determined that this is necessary. As a member who was making that decision, for us not to be able to have that information, I think, is a little bit, I think that's, that we're kind of negligible in making that decision without seeing that data to our constituents who are among these corridors, who drive among these corridors, and I can go back to them and say, I saw this, this study here, it said this, it said that, to base that information off of. Right now it's just, you guys only see that and you're hiding behind legislation from the state that says, essentially for any type of like some kind of criminal hearing or some kind of civil, like if someone gets sued based on these types of things, that the information cannot be discoverable, but that doesn't mean you necessarily can't share that with the legislative body that is making a decision to grant this type of information. And so I think it's hard for me to, pass something like this out without having that information, without having to understand that information. I mean, we just asked for what do you use to determine that, right? We're just asking for that information. What are you using, so I can make a more informed decision.
Just respectfully, the main criteria, and this is all very public, and we have it up on line, and it's all accessible, is crash data, right? This is really based on where we're seeing speeding-related and serious injury crashes and fatal crashes. We know that speed is the key factor in those, so that's like our end goal, right, is of course to try to eliminate those severe crashes, and that's how those corridors were selected. The speed data piece, again, there is existing speed data that is available and that we also consulted to sort of further prove that we're seeing a speeding issue on these corridors. But it really is about the crash data at the end of the day, and that report is online and fully accessible. It's been there for a number of months now, so we do want to be as transparent as possible.
But the actual study to determine this corridor is not something that we have access to.
So to determine the corridor, to sort of say like this one is being prioritized, that is everyone has access to that.
Yes,
That's based on crash data.
What I'm asking about is the specifics of these corridors where these cameras will go. Again, the information that was used to determine the corridor, the speed of the corridor, all those things, that is not available to us.
The specific studies that are required to set speed limits are the ones that are privileged, yeah.
All right, so you're asking us to set speed limits without having that information, essentially, without being able to take a look at that information.
I guess what we're asking is for permission to use the speed cameras because we know that there's a speeding problem. And as a result of that process, the speed limit will be looked at because it's required. So we are asking without yet having determined exactly if the speed limit should remain what it is now or if it needs to be changed to grant a permission to do speed cameras because there's a speeding problem.
Thank you. Are there any questions of these witnesses? Chair recognizes Councilmember Ahmad.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon. Question, not about this legislation specifically because it mentions particular parts of the roadways. I have a question of why Lincoln Drive does not make it. I need to know this because I drive it every day, and it is horrendous. And sometimes I contribute to that horrendous behavior. But I just want to know what is, similar to what he was asking, what is the criteria? Is it because there's not enough crashes? We all know how to drive there, is what I'm understanding. But anybody new on that street is completely terrified.
So first of all, as far as a shared experience goes, I completely and totally agree. Back when I did own a car, I did drive on Lincoln Drive substantially often. People are well over the speed limit. It is not just anecdotal, that's there for sure. In the process of selecting the 5 corridors that the state legislation allowed us to pick, we looked at, I believe it was 25 state routes, and Lincoln Drive was on there. But it did not crack the top 5. We really had to pick the 5 most severe corridors. Something else that came up pretty often was, much like what you're describing, there are roads where people are speeding very often and well above the speed limit. However, there are not also the crashes to go with it. So State Route 291, better known as Penrose Ave, the Platte Bridge by the airport, very similar kind of phenomenon, really, really high speeds, and anyone who's gone over that bridge knows that that's absolutely the case. But the crashes were just not quite there to reflect justifying the top 5. We would love to expand this program further.
So, exactly, that was my question, after these top 5 are done. Because otherwise, you might as well make the speed limit 60 on Lincoln Drive, because that's what people are doing, right? So I just wondered if there's a way to send a message after this is there tranches of these are done? Because that is, a disaster waiting to happen, and disasters have happened. So just wanted to know if that is on our radar for the next group of things.
Like I had mentioned earlier, we would absolutely love to expand the program further. And once we do have those slots, we will certainly go back and reevaluate. And, hey, say if Harrisburg says you can have another 5 or another 10, there's a very good chance, Lincoln Drive gets it, and some of the other, corridors people talk about. Frequently, Kelly Drive comes up as well. It's, again, it's not that there isn't a speeding problem or isn't a crash problem. It's just not the top 5 that,
We're just great drivers, you mean? Okay.
See, but, thank you, Councilmember Ahmad. But just to that point, Lincoln Drive, if you drive in the city of Philadelphia, you know that is one of the most dangerous, when it comes to speeding crashes. But we can't see the data that they've made this decision off of. And I think that's just something that is just, going to keep coming up, is that my eyes are telling me something different, like in the city, right? So we need to be able to verify what we're seeing, where we're living anecdotally, right? So to look at that data to see if it really matches what we're seeing. That's what we're asking for.
And that is, sorry, I don't know if this is on. That data is on online. That data that was used, you can see there's a list of every corridor that we evaluated, all 25 or so, and sort of how the score was assigned based on what types of crashes happen on that corridor, and you can see where each corridor falls in that list.
That's correct. But again, once the state approves us to use this type of technology on that corridor, we won't see that. We won't ever have any input on or information on publicly about what else is being used to improve safety on that corridor, whatever variables are being used. We won't ever know that because it's privileged, essentially.
The only privileged thing is the speed study that determines the speed.
But that's what you
is-
use to determine, the type of solutions you're going to put forward. So if you're just giving a solution without us having to see, the work, see how you got there, I think that's an issue for some people. If I could
clarify one thing here. It seems as though we keep saying data as though we're referring to one data set, one collection of data, and in reality we're referring to several. Fatal and serious injury crashes and what are called speeding crashes, which is determined by the reporting police officer on the scene whether or not speeding was a factor. That's all publicly available. You can get that through PennDOT. We have links to that as well through our website at vision0phl.com. What we're talking about are specifically the speed studies.
The speed study, yes. The speed studies, right, where the experts take that data, right, use that data to compose a study so it can be in a more user-friendly format to actually read, right? So that's the study that you all are using to determine. You all can see that study that is conducted, but we can't. And I think that's, as the people who have to legislate that, I think that is just where I have a concern for, is that we don't have the ability to see the same study that you're making the decision on. We have to make the same type of decision without seeing that study. And I just think that that's not something that, I think it's a bad practice. So, I understand there's a state law that may say something about, information is not discoverable. But I do think that there is a way where we can keep information privileged, particularly for a legislator, than for the public, right? You're asking us to authorize these speed cameras in this area, but again, we don't know what was determining factors for that traffic study. So just want to put that on the record again. Are there any questions of these witnesses? Chair recognizes Councilmember Bass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to just follow up regarding Lincoln Drive, because I think part of what has happened, as someone who's on Lincoln Drive every single day, I think that what may have happened is that because there has been some traffic calming measures applied in the form of speed cushions, that traffic has slowed down. And so, we have we've sort of become a victim of our own success, so to speak. We've slowed traffic down a bit, but it still could use some attention. It could use a lot of attention, actually. And I think sometimes we are held to accountability for things that are out of our control. This is something that we can't control, and yet we are still held responsible as the elected officials. So there really has to be some way, some measure that we have access to the information so that when we stand before a community group, we can speak intelligently about exactly what's happening in our community. So just wanted to make that point. I know it's not, your, call to make, but if someone's listening, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. And again, I just wanted to get that on the record that there's information that we can't have access to, that the administration is using a state law to keep this information from us in order to, and I understand, but again, we're asked to make a decision when we cannot be fully informed on the issue. And responsible for the results, essentially, right? I mean, that's, so, but thank you. Are there any other questions of these witnesses? Seeing none, Mr. Pullen, would you please call the next witnesses to testify on this bill?
The next witness to testify are Chris Gale, Executive Director at the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia, Jared Johnson of Fifth Square, and Justin Gronendijk.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed with your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Gale. I'm the Executive Director of the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Thank you, Chair Member Young and the members of the Streets and Services Committee for this time. An analysis by the Streets Department based on their identified 3 corridors prioritized in the city's automated speed enforcement expansion report. All of these corridors are on the Philadelphia High Injury Network, with 80% of all crashes involving a death or serious injury occurring on just 12% of our city streets. Speed cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard have been in operation for 5 years and have yielded results that safety advocates and traffic engineers once only dreamed of. Speed cameras have reduced speeding at their locations by 95%. Fatal and serious injury crashes have dropped by 21%. Crashes involving people walking have fallen by nearly 50%. And researchers have estimated that speed cameras have saved almost 1 life per month on Roosevelt Boulevard. The Bicycle Coalition supports Bill number 250770 and asks that members of the Streets and Services Committee vote in favor of it.
Thank you, Mr. Jarrett. Please proceed. Mr. Johnson,
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Chair Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Jared Johnson. I serve as the lead transit organizer for Fifth Square Advocacy, speaking in support of Bill number 250770 regarding speed cameras on Erie Avenue, Allegheny Avenue, and Columbus Boulevard. We all agree that speed kills or does serious injury to people. These corridors are among our deadliest stretches in Philadelphia, and I'm glad to see the city get serious about traffic deaths and injuries. Placing cameras at these high-risk locations is a critical step towards saving lives and changing dangerous behavior towards drivers. These cameras are not a money grab funds reserved from PennDOT for corridor safety improvements. Studies will show it'll benefit not only drivers but pedestrians and bicyclists going through these areas. Studies also credit the speed cameras on Roosevelt Boulevard with saving 1 life every month. Their true value is measured in lives saved, not dollars collected. I have friends and colleagues that ride bikes in these areas. A few of them are here today behind me, and I always think about their safety every single day. Some say these cameras are a crutch for police enforcement. While we are grateful for the work of our police, we all understand that we cannot afford to have an officer on every dangerous block 24/7. These cameras will provide consistent, unbiased enforcement and will give officers time to focus on other duties. Finally, the state government in Harrisburg limit us to 5 corridors. There are definitely more than 5 roads that need measures, this kind of measures in the area, and that we shouldn't have to pick and choose which roads get the most attention and which roads should be left alone that we will later regret because of someone getting seriously injured or someone losing their life. Do we want that on our plate? I don't think so. We would like the City Council to join us in advocating for more speed camera corridors. be an ally in road safety, and authorize more red light cameras in these intersections. This will save many lives. It already has on Roosevelt Boulevard during the past 5 years. Thank you for your time, and we look forward to working together towards a solution.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions of this panel by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you? Mr. Pullen, would you please call the title of the next bill?
Bill number 250718, titled Amending Chapter 12-900 of the Philadelphia Code, entitled Parking Regulations and Penalties, to confirm regulations adopted by the Department of Streets that establish and revise time-limited and other rules restricting parking, stopping, and standing, including the establishment of time-restricted loading zones in the Center City area, bounded by Spring Garden Street, the Schuylkill River, Bainbridge Street, and the Delaware River, and to reauthorize changes and additions to such parking rules in the Center City area by the Department of Streets on an ongoing basis, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Mr. Pullen. Would you please call the witnesses to testify on this bill?
The first witness to testify is Richard Montanez, Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Streets.
For the record, I note that an amendment to bill number 250718 has been sent to members of the committee. Mr. Montanez, please state your name and give us your testimony.
Good afternoon, Chairman Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Richard Montanez. I am the Deputy Commissioner for the Department of Streets. I'm here to offer testimony on behalf of Bill number 250718, introduced by Chairman Young on behalf of Council President Johnson. This bill confirms regulation adopted by the Streets Department that establishes and revises time-limited and other rule-restricted parking, stopping, and standing, including the establishment of time-restricted loading zones in the Center City area, bounded by Spring Garden Street, the Schuylkill River, Bainbridge Street, and the Delaware River, and to reauthorize changes and additions to such parking rules in the Center City area by the Department of Streets on an ongoing basis. The Department of Streets supports this legislation. This concludes my testimony, and I'm pleased to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Montanez. So for the record, can you tell us, the members of this committee, where these proposed loading zones will be authorized? Again, just so folks can have some clarity.
This would authorize the Streets Department to establish, or basically reauthorize the Streets Department to establish time loading zones, time restrictions within the Center City area, as bounded by Spring Garden Street, Bainbridge, Delaware River, and the Schuylkill River.
Have you seen the proposed amendment to the legislation?
Have I personally read it?
The proposed amendment, yeah, this is to 250718. Just
Yes.
all right, and the proposed amendment, could you tell us where the loading zones are authorized?
It's to amend Center City as bounded by the streets I mentioned.
Okay. Hold on. Thank you. Are there any other questions by members of the committee? Chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla.
How were loading zones done previous to this?
So loading zones are done by Streets Department regulation. It was an ordinance that was introduced in 1981 by City Council, authorizing the Streets Department to establish loading zone by regulation. This reestablishes that, and furthermore allows us to define loading zones, since at the time in 1980, e-commerce was not available. We did not have multi-use spaces such as residential at the bottom or commercial at the bottom, residential at the top.
And I understand too, because of the current lawsuit that was there, that this has to be done, but you're saying that the streets department, under previous purview, was always doing loading zones up to this point?
Streets Department was always authorized to regulate the curb space within Center City.
And the court ordered that differently for this stretch?
I cannot speak on the pending
Okay, all right.
regulation.
So that, for just this stretch, then it would allow the streets department to continue doing what they've been doing?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions of this witness by members of this committee on this legislation? Seeing none, thank you for your testimony, Mr. Montanez. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the next witness to testify?
The next witness to testify are Lloyd Brotman, Nicole Galley, and Rick Herskovitz of Friends of Pine and Spruce.
Thank you so much. If you have written testimony, I ask that you submit that to Mr. Pullen for the record, and give your testimony, please.
We sent him our written testimony yesterday.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Lloyd Brotman. I've lived in the Ritfit neighborhood since 1971, and I'm president of Friends of Pine and Spruce, an organization established to give residents a voice regarding the Pine Spruce corridor. I speak in opposition to Bill 250718. The city's plan involved three parts. First, canceling Mayor Nutter's 2009 promise to let residents stop briefly in front of their homes. Second, eliminating 30% of scarce on-street parking to create loading zones. And third, installing concrete barriers which would make our streets less safe, especially for elderly and disabled residents. To be clear, FOPS is not anti-bike lane. Residents and cyclists successfully shared the streets for 16 years until the recent changes. We're in favor of making streets safer by using effective speed control. Consistent with the goals of Vision Zero, we believe that limited city funding should be used where it will do the most good, on the 12% of city streets where 80% of the deaths and serious injuries occur. Diverting finite resources to non-high-risk areas such as these relatively safe center city streets is inequitable and will cause more deaths citywide. The city's plan might be well-intended, but it fails to employ a scientific, data-driven approach using verifiable facts. And you've been asking great questions today to get that scientific data. The Court of Common Pleas of Philadelphia recently granted an injunction prohibiting the construction of new loading zones and requiring the removal of those already installed. Judge Thomas Street did not make that decision lightly. Members of council, you can certainly change the rules because you don't like the outcome. However, passing this bill would not address the lack of factual analysis supporting the benefits of loading zones, nor would it resolve concerns about the likely harm to elderly and disabled that Judge Thomas Street found so compelling. And be careful what you wish for. It would give the Streets Department carte blanche to establish loading zones regardless of resident opinion, and would eliminate councilmanic prerogative, leaving each of you unable to protect the residents in your own districts. Rather than simply granting Otis more unchecked power, please pause and take the time to better understand the problem, and please vote to defeat this bill. As leaders, work with all stakeholders, find solutions and a workable plan. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Please proceed. State your name and proceed with your testimony.
Yes. My name is Richard Herskovich. I live at 5th and Spruce Street for 41 years. I'm a registered architect and planning background in the city of Philadelphia, where I've worked for over 50 years. My wife is handicapped. I'm here in opposition to Bill 250718, which would give Otis unchecked authority over the Streets Department and City Council to establish loading zones in residential neighborhoods. You've brought out, Councilman Young, that we don't have the information, we don't have the data, and we can never see it. It's opaque. So we want this bill to include a way to make it less opaque to the community. It's a very important issue. I just added it to it. This bill expands Otis's powers without requiring data-driven studies or community input. In my neighborhood, Otis has already demonstrated the consequences of this approach. Oversized loading zones sit largely unused, while cross streets remain underutilized for loading zones. In some cases, daylighting, this new idea, which is a good idea, was applied to the wrong end of the block, which is not a great indication Otis knows what it is doing, making intersections less safe. Otis has failed to apply standard truck and bus turning radius templates, which has impeded access for large vehicles, and so they end up running over all the barriers that they have now. These examples show why unchecked authority is problematic. This bill must be amended to require technical analysis, transparent planning, and meaningful consultation with the residents. It doesn't now. Neighborhood loading zones should improve safety and meet real needs. That means allowing adequate time for contractor parking, supporting residents who must unload near their homes, especially handicapped, and avoid unnecessary towing, because the towing is unnecessary. For these reasons, I respectfully urge Council to reject the bill as drafted or amend it to include study, transparency, and community involvement. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Please state your name and proceed for the record.
You bet. Thank you. Nicole Galley. Members of council, I live on the 2100 block of Pine Street, where I've been a homeowner for nearly 25 years, and I'm a proud Philadelphia business owner for the last 10. I'm here to speak out against Bill 250718. Contrary to what was stated by the person who spoke right before us, the city representative, this bill is extraordinary and expands any powers that streets had previously. The residential permit program is one of the prides of City Council, and this bill delegates complete authority to the Streets Department to remove as much permit parking as streets would like, prodded, of course, by Otis. Those officials are not elected by, and thus not accountable to, the citizens of Philadelphia. Consequently, this ordinance, if enacted, would shield all such actions from public scrutiny and deprive concerned citizens whose daily lives will be indisputably impacted by these rules from having the right and opportunity to a full and fair hearing on such changes. In 1982, the year after the ordinance that was just mentioned, this council passed an ordinance providing for the current permit parking system in Center City and University City. The ordinance had an important purpose and was enacted after a full and fair hearing because City Council understood that the citizens of these neighborhoods needed more reliable access to on-street parking near their homes. And today, that need is even greater. This year, without proper authorization or hearings, the Streets Department, at the recommendation of Otis, unilaterally decided to eliminate more than 30% of the permit parking spots on Pine and Spruce Street to make way for loading zones. As the Court of Common Pleas recently held, this decision has significant adverse consequences for the residents, especially the elderly and disabled residents. To quote the court, they would be forced to walk up to an entire city block to exit a vehicle or unload items that must be carried back to their homes. The court observed that although the basis given by the Streets Department for these changes was to prevent parking in bike lanes, and to reiterate what my colleague said, absolutely support bike safety, there was no evidence supporting this proposition. There has been a total lack of evidence for the changes that the Streets Department and Otis are trying to make. The very issue, Councilman Young, that you were addressing with the other situation is the same here. There is no transparency, there is a lack of evidence. What is happening is Streets and Otis are acting on instinct and preference, not upon true hard evidence, and that is what the court looked at. Certainly, with this bill, City Council could have, as it does for so many streets changes, proffered a bill narrowly targeted to the specific issue that triggered that injunction and triggered this legislation. Whether or not more than 30% of the parking on Pine and Spruce Streets should be removed and substituted with loading zones, thus allowing for a full and complete hearing on the merits, where you could question the Streets Department and Otis about the basis for that decision, where you as our elected officials could ask the hard questions, demand to see the data that does not exist. And we could also have a full and fair hearing, not only from the Streets Department and Otis for justifying their decision with hard, true evidence, but where you could hear from concerned citizens who see another side. We are in a single debate here. You either want bike lanes in any way with walls up there, or you want bikers to die. That's ridiculous. You know that. Compromise is necessary. We would like to compromise. We'd like to look at hard data, and we'd like to find solutions that work for everyone. Instead, if the ordinance at issue today passes, Council will have ducked the hard debate, and instead given the Streets Department and Otis carte blanche to take any actions it wishes about removing parking without having to justify its actions or withstand public scrutiny of them. Honestly, the discretion is so broad, if you read the proposed legislation, that the Streets Department and Otis could eliminate all street parking in Center City in its entirety. I'll be candid, I haven't seen the proposed amendments. I'm going with the original bill. If there are things in those amendments to limit their authority, I 100% support that. But at least as it was originally written and disseminated, absolutely not. In any event, in closing, the citizens of Philadelphia depend upon you, members of City Council, to represent their interests. And these hearings, City Council hearings such as this, provide the key vehicle by which Philadelphia citizens convey their views to elected officials. In delegating such a significant portion of your authority to an administrative department, not an elected body, Council deprives its constituents of the opportunity to be heard on these issues and allows the Street Department and Otis unfettered discretion to work in the shadows and decide what they think is best to do with a scarce resource, parking, and among other things, in the heart of the city. I urge all members of Council to vote no on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions of these witnesses by members of the committee?
Councilmember Young,
Yes.
you asked a question earlier about a percentage of injuries that occurred on particular roads on the high injury network. I just wanted to point out to you, there is a report issued by PennDOT in 2023 called Vulnerable Road Users. It lists the 400 most dangerous streets in Philadelphia. And the point I'd like to make is neither Pine nor Spruce is on that list of the 400 most dangerous streets.
And you said this is a study conducted by the Department of Transportation, PennDOT?
PennDOT 2023 called Vulnerable Road Users. I believe it's referenced in the Vision Zero papers.
Thank you for that. Just for the record, the amendment for this legislation states that the area would be authorized for spruce and pine. Just to put that on the record, that's what the amendment says. It does not extend into the entire Center City area. it was tailored, essentially.
If I may then, members of council, that's a very pointed amendment. When was that proposed?
It's members of the, it was proposed to members of the committee, and we're asked to hear on it, to take a look at it today, so.
Because I find it troubling that I, as a citizen, was not aware of the amendment until today when I showed up. There are other constituents, if we had understood the very specific specificity of this amendment, who might have been here and wished to have this debate. This is a very important issue, and I also then say, if you are looking to narrow this and specifically authorize this for spruce and pine, I respectfully request that you table this today and call Otis and call Streets in to provide evidence for why this is going to make a significant difference, if any, in the safety of Pine and Spruce Street. You've heard no evidence to that effect whatsoever, and that's not what this bill originally was designed to do. It was the broad extraordinary bill that I spoke to. But regardless, the point is still the same. You have no evidence in the record, none. And the reason is they don't have it. I don't understand how elected officials in that scenario can in good conscience move ahead and grant Streets and Otis the right to make these changes without a substantial record.
Thank
And
you.
I ask, if you don't vote no, that you at least table until you have asked for that evidence to be presented. I think you owe it to the citizens of Pine and Spruce to do that.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions from the members of this committee? Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Pullen. Are there any other witnesses to testify on this bill?
Yes. The next witnesses to testify are Russell Ritchie, Treasurer for Fifth Square, Andrew Pasmontier, Philly Bike Action, David Wolfson, and Albert Meister, Society Hill residents, and Wesley Noonan Sessa.
Thank you all. Please just state your name for the record and begin with your testimony.
Hi, I'm Russell Ritchie, Treasurer of Fifth Square. Should I continue with my testimony?
Yes, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, Chair Young and members of the Streets and Services Committee. My name is Russell Ritchie, and I'm a board member of Fifth Square Advocacy, an organization focused on a more safe, accessible, sustainable, and equitable Philadelphia. Fifth Square Advocacy is in support of Bill number 250718. The rise of online ordering, food delivery, and ride-hailing means we need loading zones more than ever. This bill is absolutely necessary to modernize the use of curb space in our city. As even bike lane opponents have attested, we need a space to load and unload groceries, elderly, relatives, children, and strollers. For Spruce and Pine Streets, the prior practice of the bike lane doubling as a loading zone has impeded efforts to protect it. This lack of protection has had devastating consequences. Despite the passage of the Get Out the Bike Lane law 1 year ago, the bike lanes on Spruce and Pine today still need physical protection. Opponents have claimed that, quote, residents and cyclists successfully shared the streets, quote. Dr. Freitas was using the bike lane and was still killed by a driver who entered that space. Her murderer was not, quote, sharing the streets successfully. Opponents say we should focus on the high injury network. Spruce Street is on the high injury network. Opponents have claimed that the residential parking permit program promises them a spot. RPP has never guaranteed a space, and the city has no duty to preserve parking. Moreover, this argument means that the city can't designate handicap spots or even install a fire hydrant. Opponents have claimed that the city is acting without community input. Last October, Otis held a well-attended open house at Jefferson University on the Spruce and Pine project. As an attendee, I know opponents were there and had their say. Results from hundreds of survey responses show overwhelming support for loading zones. And finally, I'm disappointed Chair Young has decided to hold the bill for the City Hall bike lane, as I am here to also support that and want to see this valuable safety measure for Center City and the 5th Council District. Thank you for your time, and I'd like to turn it over now to some people who live along Spruce and Pine so they can offer their perspective.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the next witness?
That would be Andrew Pasmontier, David Wolfson, Albert Meister, and Wesley Noonan Sessa.
Good afternoon, members of the Streets and Services Committee, Chair Young. I'm here to testify in favor of Bill 250718. I have lived on 900 block of Pine since 2019. One of the biggest concerns I get from friends, neighbors, residents on the next block over on Spruce people visiting from out of town, delivery drivers. The most common complaint I hear has been consistently, there's no place to safely and legally stop to unload. There are a few loading zones that have already existed on the other side of the street from me for, as far as I remember, as long as I've lived here, so at least 2019. Those were put in under the authority of the bill that the gentleman from the Streets Department mentioned in 1981. Those have been there functioning just fine for as long as I've lived here. The only problem is that there's not enough of them. Certain people seem to think parking in the bike lane is a viable alternative, even though it has resulted in several deaths. The obvious solution here is expand the loading zone spaces, add more spots for contractors, residents, delivery drivers to load and unload. The city recognized this earlier this year, and I was thrilled. When the signs went up, there was an immediate and significant improvement in parking and loading along the block. Many fewer people parking in crosswalks, many fewer people blocking the sidewalk, many fewer people pulling it out of the bike lane, swerving around, using it as a passing lane. I felt safer while these loading zone signs were up, and they had good turnover. It was working. I live there, I look out my window every day, and it seems like all of these spots were not only working for the residents, but working for delivery drivers, contractors coming through the street. At the beginning of each month, I saw moving trucks using the loading zones to move in and out instead of parking at the end of the blocks, pulling in, parking on the sidewalk. I've seen all kinds of bad practices by moving companies that went away when these loading zones were put in. They were working very well. I heard a lot of neighbors who were thrilled to have them put in. But when the signs came down, all of the chaos that these opponents have said would happen with these loading zones came back when the loading zones went away. It's very clear that these loading zones were actually working, despite claims of people who say they represent residents, but I've never spoken to me, I've never heard from them. They just show up one day and say they represent me. I really encourage the committee and city council as a whole to properly pass this bill, advance it into the next phase on the floor, and pass this bill to enable the streets department, who are the actual subject matter experts here, to create loading zones, whether those are backed by all residents or just most of them.
Thank you for your testimony. You must, please state your name and proceed with your testimony.
Hi, I'm Wesley Nunez-Sessa. I'm a preservation general contractor who works in the city of Philadelphia. I currently have a project at the corner of Pine Street and 11th Street, right where there was a loading zone until a couple weeks ago when the city removed it because of the lawsuit. I worked on the project before and after the loading zone. It saved a lot of time in looking for parking and places to drop off materials. A lot of my general contractor, my subcontractors often ask me first, where do I park, where do I unload? And I said, well, there's a loading zone right in front of the building, and you can drop your tools and equipment there and park your vehicle later. Now, since the loading zone has been removed, I've personally spent more than a half hour on countless occasions trying to find one, circling, waiting for people to move so I can use the loading zone that's not, frankly, too small to fit a work truck in to unload a vehicle, and also there's not enough room behind it to remove anything from the back of the truck. The added time parking adds cost, adds time, which is money in contracting and building. It adds cost to logistics, and we either have to eat that cost or pass along to our clients, making work on the homes in Philadelphia a little bit more expensive, which we would love to bring our costs down.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Mr. Pullen, would you please call the name of the next witness?
I didn't know I was being called on. I'd like to stand, but a person of my stature really doesn't make much difference if I stand or sit. But my name is Albert Meinster, and I'm a resident of Society Hill. I've been so for quite a few years, as you can see from my McCall School sweatshirt. I've been a member of the Society Hill Civic Association until quite recently, when the Friends of Pine and Spruce led a very successful political campaign to eliminate those who had opposite points of view to theirs. Look, I have no written prepared speech to read from. I can only read from what's here. I'm an everyday bicyclist. I'm 82 years old. I'm an everyday bicyclist. It's my principal means of transporting myself throughout the neighborhood and other parts of the city as well. I use pine and spruce every day. And I can tell you the hazards that are caused when we cyclists need to go out into the traffic lane. And it's because the recent removal of the parking zones that had existed on each side of the street, that this situation has gotten worse. I can tell you as a bicyclist and also previously as a motorcyclist, motorists really don't see us. They're not prepared to see people on bicycles. And when we need to swerve out into the traffic lane, it's as though we're invisible. And I can tell you that there have been many, many close calls. I'm sorry, I suffer from aphasia. In 1980, I was hit by a truck while on my bicycle. I was thrown to the ground. My head hit the surface. I've not been the same since. I have short-term memory problems and as I said, aphasia. It's part of the reason I'm here and so highly motivated. I don't want to see happen to anyone else what had occurred to me. And I believe the ordinance that's you're about to vote for will certainly go a long way to prevent future accidents such as mine from happening. But look, before I say goodbye, I want to defend my neighbors in Society Hill. They've been castigated by the bicycling community and other neighbors within Society Hill. They've been called uncaring. They're not uncaring. They're just unknowledgeable. They don't understand what we're up against when we're on a bicycle on Pine and Spruce Street. If they did, their views would be quite different. There's a lot more I could probably say about this, but I urge you to vote for this new ordinance that will make it possible to continue placing the loading zones on either side of the street. So thank you folks for listening to me.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Please state your name for the record and give us your testimony.
Yes, good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity of speaking in favor of Bill 250718. My name is David Wolfson. I'm an attorney in town. I live on Pine Street. I'm a real friend of Pine Street. Not permitted to join their organization because their organization is a political one that opposes any measures to make bike riding safer. So, a real friend here. I'm here, as Ms. Ghali said, that there's no evidence in the record, so I'm here to put some evidence in the record. And I have some pretty good empirical evidence. We had those loading zones for a few months. There were 2 on my block. It was absolutely fantastic. You heard a few of the folks who are against the loading zones talk about the elderly and the disabled. I have a 95-year-old mother who I pick up and drop off at my house. And when there were loading zones there, I always knew there was this place within less than a half block from my house where I could drop her off. And now that place is typically gone and taken up by more parking. There's a fundamental paradox about the position that the so-called Friends of Spruce and Pine are taking. They say that we need more parking, on-street parking, and that somehow having more cars on the side of the street will make it safer for the elderly and the disabled. But the whole point of having the drop-off spaces is to have places where you could drop off your groceries or drop off an elderly or disabled person. And that now is gone. The other reason to have those spots, of course, is what Mr. Meister was talking about. I ride my bike most days to my Center City Law Office, and again, the bike lanes are used as parking spots by trucks and cars even when they could easily park on the other side, legal side of the street. There is a culture in the city whereby drivers see the bike lane and they think that that's a place to park. And as Mr. Meister said, when you're going down the bike path and now you have to swerve into the middle of the road, you are not seen. And I've been almost hit probably 15 or 20 times over the last 7 years. So again, I urge you, I just wanted to say that the judge entered her preliminary injunction, I think the middle of August, August 15th. And since then, the streets on the bike lanes and generally the street at my block and elsewhere on Pine and Spruce have gotten much more dangerous. Thank you, and I urge you to vote in favor of this bill.
Thank you for your testimony.
May I,
Are there any questions of these witnesses by members of the committee?
may I just
Seeing
add,
none, thank you for your testimony, sir.
may I just add an amendment, at your permission?
I'm sorry, say that again.
May I add an amendment to what I just
Really
said,
quick,
at your
sir.
permission?
Yes. Yes, please.
I'd like to point out that many of the folks living on Pine and Spruce have off-street parking. It's behind their homes. Many do not even own automobiles.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Thank you. Mr. Pullen, would you please call
Yes, Chris Gale.
would you please call the next witness to testify?
The next witness to testify is Chris Gale, Executive Director of the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia.
Mr. Gale, please state your name for the record and give me your testimony.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Gale. I'm the Executive Director of the Bicycle Coalition of Greater Philadelphia. Thank you, Councilmember Young and members of Streets and Services for this time. The Bicycle Coalition supports Bill number 250718 because it reaffirms that the city has the authority to manage all parking and loading regulations in Center City. Updating loading zones and parking is important for adapting roads to meet the needs of today. Good curb management can help alleviate congestion, reduce crashes, and help us all share the road. Again, the Bicycle Coalition supports Bill number 250718 and asks that members of the Streets and Services Committee vote in favor of it.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Are there any questions of this witness by members of the committee? Seeing none, thank you so much. Mr. Pullen, is anyone else, any witness panels for this bill?
No more panels, Chair.
Thank you so much. We will now be taking a 10-minute recess. I got you. I see you all. I see you all. I see you all. We will now be taking a 10-minute recess, and after we have to give our stenographer a break, and after our recess, we'll go into our public comment section to allow public comment on the bills being heard today. Thank you.